just said the quiet part out loud. I'm going to tell you all about the new bill that Representative Ro Khanna introduced to try and stop this TikTok ban from going any further. But before I do that, I want you to listen to the answer he gave me during our interview last week about why he thinks this TikTok ban was passed in the first place. Listen.
I cannot wrap my logical head around how it can be what they say it is, a national security concern, yet we have multiple Temu, Shein, Red Note in the United States gathering data, sending it much more than TikTok directly to China. Why TikTok? What is it really about? Because if it was Congressman, if it was actually about national security, it would be the law would have been what you said it would be. But it wasn't. It was specifically targeted. Why?
I think two things. I think it was easy to say, oh, I'm somehow anti-China because TikTok is the most known to the public about as an app, and some of the things that you're talking about are more obscure. But the second thing, and I'm just going to speak honestly about this, is this app had a lot of views of people, young people in particular, who were critical of the war in Gaza. It had views of people who had on reproductive rights and issues that people felt uncomfortable about. On the right, people question, with vaccines, and I think it made people uncomfortable that this was a platform that had a tremendous amount of free speech. And I think what is so sad is you have politicians always saying, oh, we want young people involved and the next generation involved. And then you finally have a platform where there are a lot of young people involved and they're expressing views, and now you're uncomfortable with it. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, really is what galvanized people to act so quickly.
Obviously, Representative Khanna voted no last year on the law that ultimately established the TikTok ban, and now he's teaming up with Democratic Senator Ed Markey and Republican Senator Rand Paul, who also happens to be the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, to repeal the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act. Together, they introduced this bill called the Repeal the TikTok Ban Act in Congress yesterday. A repeal of the law would absolutely remove all this drama around TikTok. It would not require a divestiture and would not put President Trump in a position where he would have to either cut a deal or follow through and ban TikTok. The bill is just 1.5 pages long. The title says exactly what it would do. If passed, it would repeal the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, and it would make sure the designation of TikTok and ByteDance as a foreign adversary-controlled application has no force or effect. Senator Paul said this law has to go. They tell you this is about China, about security, about safety. That's a lie. This is about control, about fear, about silencing you. A government that can ban an app can ban a book. A government that can silence a platform can silence a person. Today it's TikTok, tomorrow it's your news. Next week, it's your voice. Some politicians think the First Amendment has fine print. It doesn't. The right to free speech doesn't come with exceptions. Not for apps, not for ideas, not for politicians who think they know better than you. They don't ban speech to protect you. They ban speech to control you. Now, while it is notable that progressive Democrats like Representative Khanna and Senator Markey have teamed up with Republican Senator Rand Paul to introduce this legislation, it is unclear if it will get any traction, especially not the traction it needs in a Republican-controlled House and Senate to even get enough support to get congressional leadership to even pay attention to it, especially when the vast majority of lawmakers in the House and Senate feel like this.
There will be no extensions, no concessions, and no compromises for TikTok. This Congress, this Republican Congress, certainly won't do by changing the law.
The worst part is all of this information is accessible to engineers based in China, accessible to the Chinese Communist Party. Last time I checked my Constitution, there was no such protection. And I can be darn sure that there is no special First Amendment carve-out for communists.
While it's true the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act passed with an overwhelming amount of bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate, and then was ultimately unanimously confirmed to be constitutional and not a violation of the First Amendment by the United States Supreme Court, Representative Khanna says that still doesn't make it right.
National security state has often overreached in American history. In FDR's time, FDR is one of my favorite presidents, but because of national security and the war against Japan, thousands and thousands of Japanese Americans were interned. And most people view that as shameful that happened. And then during McCarthyism, there was bipartisan consensus. And the Supreme Court was ruled saying that internment was fine because of national security. And then during McCarthyism, hundreds of Americans were hauled in front of Congress and told they were communists. And there was bipartisan consensus on that. So just because there's bipartisan consensus on this among some doesn't mean that it's right. We've learned this from American history.
Representative Khanna has already gathered more than 1 million signatures on a petition as a way to prove his point to his congressional colleagues about what he and Senator Paul and Senator Markey see as the need to protect the free speech rights of 170 million Americans and the livelihoods of millions of content creators. So if you want to sign that petition, you can, of course, find it on Representative Khanna's social media pages, or I will email it out to you tonight in my Facts HQ newsletter, so make sure you sign yourself up.